Every moment in the hilarious Bottoms packs a punch. A hard-hitting, fast-paced, joke-filled, high school set throwback that's partly a quirky queer coming-of-age comedy of questionable decisions and partly a rowdy, rebellious reclamation of the dormant teen comedy genre. Taking place in the modern day but spiritually ripped right out of the early aughts, Bottoms follows a pair of unpopular lesbians who start a fight club at their high school in order to seduce hot cheerleaders, like a hysterical collision of the plots of Booksmart and Fight Club.
I love David Fincher.
With the comedic energy of Bring It On and not another teen movie. It's tempting, but maybe not completely fair, to say that Bottoms is like Superbad for lesbians. The opening scene features Rachel Sennett's boisterous character PJ discussing plans for her and her best friend, Iowa Debris' more timid Josie, to lose their virginities before they leave high school for college. The pair even have a third wheel hanger-on similar to Superbad's McLovin, with the character of Hazel, played by Ruby Cruz, who gets treated more harshly by the harsher of the duo.
Yeah. Hazel, let's do terrorism.
The filmmakers don't hide from that clear influence. In fact, in interviews, they've even referred to PJ as the Jonah Hill character and Josie as the Michael Cera character. However, in spite of the similarities they share, there's something too reductive about calling this movie Lesbian Superbad or the new Booksmart, because Bottoms is also unlike any movie that's come before it, and in its own way, it might be more important.
Yes! Yes! Slay!
Bottoms is the second feature film from writer-director Emma Seligman, and her second collaboration with Shiva Baby star Rachel Sennett. Shiva Baby, a really excellent low-budget dramatic comedy, has its share of funny moments that mine the discomfort and intimacy of get-togethers with your extended family for cringe-inducing humor. It's a really strong debut film that announced Emma Seligman as a singular creative voice and introduced many people to Rachel Sennett. But in terms of how much it made me laugh, it doesn't compare to the relentless stream of laugh-out-loud lines in Bottoms. Unlike Shiva Baby, Bottoms was co-written by both Seligman and Sennett, who each bring their own strengths and sensibilities to the script. Seligman, who had the original idea for Bottoms and a background in film, had a desire to make a teen sex comedy with action elements that centers queer characters.
I always had an idea for something that was sort of action-driven and superhero-esque, that had a queer female lead in high school that also could be a comedy. I just felt like I hadn't seen it before, and I love Scott Pilgrim and Kick-Ass and Attack the Block and all these, young adventure stories for young boys that are just awesome movies in general, and I just wanted to see it for queer girls.
Sennett, who Seligman called a joke machine at South by Southwest, thanks in part to her background in both stand-up and sketch writing, pushed to make Bottoms more silly.
I just wanted the movie to be funny, and I think people will see themselves in that.
Together, they've packed every scene in the movie with ridiculous campy humor. Great jokes, good jokes, and honestly some jokes that are just good enough, but it never slows down. It never stops.
Originally, Rachel was like, I don't want this to be serious. I want to just have fun and let this be so stupid.
And I'm stupid. And I want to do stupid things.
The tone that Bottoms strikes is one of heightened absurdity that maintains a toehold on reality. Yet even though the characters exist in an extremely heightened world with classroom cages, mascots with furry genitals, and car bomb explosions, the script manages to ground itself. Moments casually slip between the genuine concerns of a contemporary soon-to-be college-aged girl and the completely ridiculous.
I'm gonna finally reverse stalk my stalker. Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I'll be able to kill my stepdad.
Awesome.
Okay.
It allows the comedy to feel hilariously weird, but also feel like it stems from a place of authenticity.
I think that the challenge of trying to keep this absurd tone while also keeping it grounded has been really rewarding.
A perfect example is the Josie monologue that starts with her pretending to recall the trauma she had to endure in juvie, but lands in a sincere place of wanting to push beyond her boundaries and live her life more fully.
And I still hear their screams at night, and that guilt probably will always shackle me forever. I realize now I don't have to be that person anymore. I don't have to just let things happen to me.
It's a real tonal tightrope to keep something as uncompromisingly comedic as this is, while also having it feel centered in teenage concerns and real-world emotions. But together, Seligman and Sennett have combined their talents into a hyperactive, hysterical homage to the campy Y2K era teen comedies they grew up on, like Debs, Saved, and Wet Hot American Summer. It's full of references to films of that era too. The uniforms worn by the football team have a similar design to the cheerleader uniforms in Sugar and Spice. Josie and Isabel go out to eat at a diner called But I'm a Diner. Isabel holds the same pink fluffy style of pen top as Cher from Clueless. And even the names PJ and Josie are likely references to rock and roll high school star PJ Souls, as well as the movie Josie and the Pussycats. Among the things that keep Bottoms in the realm of absurd authenticity is the film's full-force portrayal of high school horniness.
We're not gonna be sexy little high schoolers forever. Do you wanna be the only girl virgin at Sarah Lawrence?
Sex drive drives the entire movie, and depicting high school as an arena for sexual experimentation and a den of pent-up lust rather than a place of naivete or innocence feels true in an era where most people grew up with an internet connection and all of the early indecent exposures that come with it. Bottoms is hardly the first turned-on teen comedy, but that unabashed horniness is something that's more typically attributed to young men. The list of teen sex comedies that are as blatantly horny as Bottoms isn't that long, but it gets significantly shorter when you limit that to films led by women, and even shorter than that when it comes to films starring queer characters.
Rachel wanted to make something for young women that was pushing the boundaries of sexual comedy.
The characters in Bottoms don't find sex worrisome, they find it exciting.
Female comedies, sometimes it's like the girls like discover a vibrator in the couch and they're like, oh my God, what is it? We're scared. I'm like, it's not that scary, it's blue. We all have 6 in the drawer. It's not that scary. And it's like, you know, so we just wanted to go there and be real with that.
It's the kind of extremely silly and shamelessly sexual teen movie that largely died off after the endless wave of direct-to-DVD American Pie sequels. Seriously, picture for a second what might be an appropriate number of films to exist in the American Pie franchise and how much fewer that number is than 9. And Eugene Levy is in almost all of them. Life Before Schitt's Creek was rough. That original American Pie movie, released in 1999, helped kick off the, I can't believe I actually have nostalgia for this, unrated and extended DVD trend by selling over 1 million copies. Hollywood had suddenly found a new market, kids who wanted to see naked women but couldn't buy porn. Studios started asking filmmakers to shoot additional content specifically for the DVDs, noting that unrated editions sometimes boosted sales between 20 to 80%. Suddenly, every mediocre comedy had a home video release that tantalizingly teased you from behind strategically placed box-lettered fonts. But when streaming video, digital movie sales, and let's face it, free video porn sites started to emerge between 2008 and 2014, DVD sales plummeted, as did the production of teen sex comedies. Studios stopped seeing a reason to make R-rated movies for audiences not yet old enough to buy a ticket for them at the theater. These films aren't really considered important. Many of them aren't even really considered good. So when cinephiles complain about the marvelification of the movie industry bringing upon the end of the art form, they'll point to the lack of adult dramas in theaters or Mike Leigh's struggle to find funding for his films, and not the lack of movies about young people trying to fuck. But when my friends and I were having sleepovers in middle school, we weren't trying to watch Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. We were trying to watch something that might have boobs. Not that there's any nudity in Bottoms, but it is a movie that's focused on young people. Young queer people pursuing sex and romance in a way that doesn't feel sterilized. These aren't the glamorized, picture-perfect teens from Netflix romantic comedies. These are horny little weirdos that don't say or do the right thing most of the time. Their awkwardness and eagerness is relatable. When you're young, having those types of examples to watch and learn from is a great way to understand your own place in the world, in a way that sexual education by itself can't. If you even get sex ed, let alone an inclusive version of it. Bottoms is a throwback to the kind of movie that made it easier and more fun to open up your mind to the possibility of sex. If you were born in the 80s or 90s, there's a good chance you grew up watching the same movies as Emma Seligman and Rachel Sennett, the same movies that Bottoms is emulating, the kinds of vicariously liberating comedies that demystified that aspect of growing up. Now, it's worth noting that a lot of those films, particularly the further back in film history you go, have undeniably misogynist misogynist elements. Those harmful elements range from youthful misunderstandings about gender role dynamics to supposedly comedic situations that in reality would be sex crimes. But the objectification of women is something that's endemic to the genre, and it's what makes a lot of those movies hard or harder to defend. There's also the cliched device of the predatory lesbian who tries to turn women gay, something that has contributed to the harmful depictions of queer characters in film history. Bottoms plays off of these old tropes, but modernizes and subverts them by way of its female-led and predominantly queer cast of characters. Seligman and Sennett characterize the PJ and Josie characters as powerless, unliked outsider weirdos who want to have sex in high school in order to not feel like powerless, unliked outsider weirdos when they get to college.
No one hates us for being gay. Everyone hates us for being gay, untalented, and ugly.
Which extracts the innocence from the idea of manipulating their crushes into joining a fight club. They're not creepy and unfeeling, just young and self-centered, trying to emulate the confidence they see in others. But Bottoms also doesn't reward those characters for their deceitfulness, at least not in the ways that they expect. Both Isabel and Brittany have more depth than PJ and Josie realize, and do things that take them by surprise. It also allows the objects of their desire to feel like more than just objects. Other people will likely articulate these points more eloquently than someone like me. In fact, May Rude has already written a piece for Out.com that quotes Emma Seligman, and you should read that for more on the idea of the predatory lesbian and Bottom's relationship to that. I'll link to it in the description of this video. That Emma Seligman, coming off of a really well-received Indie Spirit Award-winning film, chose to take on all of this for her second project. Not going to lie, I think that's very cool. It seems from interview comments that most of her film ideas aren't even really for comedies, yet she's delivered the funniest film of the year at a time where the theatrical comedy has largely gone missing. Because it's not just sex comedies that largely disappeared from theaters, but comedies in general. If you look at a list of the highest grossing comedies of all time, you'll see plenty of films from the early 2010s on there. The Hangover, Bridesmaids, The Hangover Part 2, Pitch Perfect 2, 22 Jump Street, Ted, and of course The Hangover Part 3, but you won't see any American comedies in the top 50 from after 2015. There's a couple explanations for what may have caused that, but I don't think a declining interest in laughing collectively was one of them. One major reason, and the one that makes sense to me, is that the last crop of reliable comedy movie stars like Adam Sandler, Kevin Hart, Melissa McCarthy, and Seth Rogen have all been swallowed up by Netflix or other streaming money. The studios, in turn, without reliable box office draws to put in their comedies, essentially stopped making out-and-out comedies unless they were tied to some larger intellectual property. Soon, the only place to see any real attempt at comedic filmmaking on the big screen were in action comedies.
You shouldn't have come out to play with Afghan boys. We ain't about to get proper scooters.
Whoa. I literally have no idea what you're saying.
But 2023 has seen Hollywood attempt to dust off their clown shoes with a slew of theatrically released comedies. Movies like No Hard Feelings, Joyride, Strays, and even Cocaine Bear are all attempting to scratch the R-rated itch that family-friendly Marvel movies can't quite scratch. Bottoms joins the conversation a bit later into the year, but it's got something that most of those other films don't have. It's actually very good. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed all those other movies I mentioned, except maybe Cocaine Bear, but there's an edge and a level of craft to Bottoms that makes it a cut above the rest. Take, for example, how No Hard Feelings softens its premise of grown adult woman gets paid to sleep with a teenager by assuring its audience that Percy, the fictional teenager that Jennifer Lawrence's character tries to seduce, is 19 years old. Despite being in the summer between high school and college, as well as his lack of a driver's license, classic signifiers of someone who is only 17 or 18 years old. Contrast that with Bottoms, where the principal talks to two of his students like this.
Just stay in your lane until you're munching beaver at Wesleyan.
There's just a willingness to go there in Bottoms that No Hard Feelings doesn't have. Joyride is a movie that is willing to go there, but often the jokes don't land because of how the movie is shot and edited. Like Bottoms, Joyride has an excellent collection of actors in breakthrough roles, but a lot of the dialogue happens in shot, reverse shot, jump cut to remove breaths, and tightened until it's suffocated within an inch of its life.
Sassy.
Cutie.
Lisa. 2. We got this.
There's a breathless pacing to Joyride that means scenes don't often build to a climax, they cut right to it. And if there's one thing you need to know about how to have good sex comedy, it's to never forget about foreplay. That line's so stupid. One of the wonderful aspects to how Emma Seligman put together Bottoms is that the characters actually feel like they exist in a space with each other and in relation to each other. Her talented actors are on screen with each other and can play off of each other. She'll start a shot on a close-up of one actor and move into a two-shot to capture that second actor's reaction. Or she'll stage an entire walk and talk that moves from behind PJ and Josie to in front of them, capturing both how other students respond to the duo and how the duo respond to that response. It's not always the best looking movie. Many of the compositions are pretty flat and it spends a lot of time in medium shots. Shiva Baby, for example, was more dynamic visually, but Bottoms is both shot and edited in a way that gives space to its actors and services the comedy. Bottoms is also layered with jokes. So often the thing occupying the center of the frame isn't the only thing worth looking at in the film. One of my favorite parts of those walk and talks are all the various ridiculous signs posted around the school or things that are written on lockers. This one small moment where Io Debris chest bumps somebody walking down the hall. There's this giant mural that's a riff on Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam, but with Jeff, the school's star quarterback, in place of Adam. But it goes completely uncommented on. It's just there to be a split-second visual gag. Seligman makes the most of the visual space and uses it to both make the comedy in the script better, as well as add jokes that weren't even in the dialogue. Its closest comedic competitor in 2023, oddly enough, is the Barbie movie. Even Barbie, despite its obvious commercial ties to big intellectual property, is first and foremost trying to make audiences laugh. And that movie's become the biggest of the year, the highest grossing comedy of all time. Clearly, audiences are ready to go to the theater and laugh again. And in fact, Barbie is quite funny, thought-provoking, and very well made. But as funny as Barbie can be, Bottoms feels more organic. Its takeaways about gender roles, the patriarchy, and women's empowerment are more progressive and applicable than the doll-centric altruisms in the Greta Gerwig movie.
By the way, great way to be an ally. That's my favorite way to be an ally. You just say you're doing something, and then you don't do any of those things. You know what I mean?
Bottoms may not be able to compete with the sheer amount of star power in Barbie, but its cast is just as excellent. Both Rachel Sennett and Io Debris are absolutely hilarious, not just individually, but opposite one another. And honestly, it's a bit of critical malpractice that I'm this deep into a review of Bottoms without mentioning that, but oh well, too late now. Sennett and Debris have a friendship and comedic partnership that dates back several years to their time together at NYU. They filmed a series of digital shorts for Comedy Central back in 2020 and have had the time to develop chemistry as scene partners. Their ability to talk over each other or jump on the end of the last person's sentence without ever overshadowing one another is phenomenal. It generates some of the funniest reactions in the film.
You know Stella Rebecca? Stella Rebecca, who models at car conventions in Chicago on the weekends? Yeah.
If we're lucky, they'll become a new generation's Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson, or Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, doing several films together over the years. Sennett has developed this comedic persona that's a bit self-centered and confident to the point that it borders on a lack of self-awareness, which almost feels like a comment on vanity. She played it to hysterical effect in Bodies, 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 but she's even funnier here.
I think you can eat food, digest it, let it marinate, poop it out. Gross. Maybe this? Do you want a bite of this?
Oh, no.
Yeah, this is fucking disgusting. Ugh.
Debris, on the other hand, gets so much space to showcase how funny and endearing she can be on screen. On The Bear, she has a similarly dry delivery and skeptical perspective, but Bottoms gives her the opportunity to be disarming, sweet, romantic, heroic, and most of all, badass.
I'm done trying to sow my damn oats. I'm packing up my vagina and I'm fucking mad at you. That's the only hope for me. No. It's man Mathieu, man. And cause he's gay and fearless, he's probably gonna fuck me without protection. Then I'm gonna get pregnant, we're gonna have to join a church, he'll be the gay pastor. My whole life's fucked!
The rest of the cast is really solid as well. It's the kind of movie like Short Term 12 or Mean Girls where it wouldn't be surprising to see some of the supporting actors become huge stars over time. I want to single out Havana Rose Liu, who takes what could be a sort of vacant character and imbues her with a really funny weirdness.
Which is pretty fucked up, even though I guess it's technically...
Nicholas Galitzine plays the obnoxious star quarterback with this impish, slightly effeminate energy that is so silly. And former Seattle Seahawks running back Marshawn Lynch as Mr. G is just a comedy goldmine with so many good reactions and lines.
Is this about the time I said Amelia Earhart was a fake hero? Because it's true. Many a guy fly planes without crashing. but you never hear about them.
Lynch apparently improvised a lot, which I think helps give a different energy to the moments with his character from the rest of the movie. He also told Emma Seligman that when he was a teenager, his sister came out to him and he didn't handle it in the best way. So he felt that being in this movie gave him a chance to make up for his past, and it's the most beautiful thing I read while researching this movie. I could nitpick about certain elements of the film if I'm feeling pedantic. To me, the biggest issue with Bottoms is that they introduced this looming threat of the rivalry game with Huntington High School, a school full of violent people who want to hurt the students at Rockbridge. But the way we find out about it is through an announcement over the school's intercom. It feels like a classic show don't tell moment where if they had just showed the girl who had been assaulted by a Huntington football player, the threat might feel more real. So by the time the climactic fight sequence is happening, there's an urgency that just doesn't feel warranted. It's still a really fun moment. The theater cheered for the start of the fight scene both times I saw Bottoms, so it clearly wasn't that big of a deal. I just think it might have helped it. Not that Bottoms really needs my help. There's an army of internet lurking Shiva Baby supporters ready to watch and rewatch the film, screen cap and meme it into oblivion. The Best of Rachel Sennett Twitter account is going to feast off of Bottoms screen caps, or X account, I don't really even know anymore. Despite what some people will say, Bottoms is not destined to be a cult classic because words have meaning, and you can't really say something is an object of cult affection if it's the most popular movie on Letterboxd. But I do think Bottoms is a modern teen comedy classic, an audience expanding entry to a genre in need of being refreshed, and a movie for people who want to see their imperfect selves reflected in their art. It's not as big as Barbie or as brilliant as Oppenheimer. It's not as emotional as Past Lives, and it's not as urgent as How to Blow Up a Pipeline, but to a lot of people, Bottoms is going to be the most important movie of 2023. A movie about the importance of big-dicked football mascots.
That's a mascot from the movie. You'll get it in like a few months.